Hi, good evening, and welcome to Buzzwords and Music. I'm here this evening with the lovely and talented Carol Albert. She's a pianist, a composer, a producer, an arranger, just all around great person, great musician, and this is kind of our first. First of all, let me welcome you to the show tonight, Carol.
hmm
And I think this is the first time we've seen each other in many years.
it definitely is, but way too long.
Yes. As I was saying before we signed in, I think the last time I saw you was with an egg McMuffin in your hand that you were handing me. Carol used to work with Herb Avery at a studio that I was at, and she would come in the mornings, and on the mornings that I was there, I don't know how we got started on that tradition, but she would contribute to my cholesterol by bringing, upon my request, a egg McMuffin every morning. So I still remember those fondly.
Well, it's always been my theory that, people that are not hungry are happy people. So, you know, I was always trying to get the happy thing going.
You owe every time you work in a studio, you want to keep everybody happy.
You want to keep people happy. Yeah.
Yep. So, all right. So, barring that, what got you started in music from the beginning?
From the very beginning,
Yes.
um, well, I came from a musical family, but it was, more musical in terms of uh, church music, gospel music, bluegrass, country music. And my grandmother played the piano by ear, and she started. She always played the. She loved to play the piano, and
Mm-hmm.
she actually had cancer, and at the time that she had it, they amputated her right arm,
Oh.
which was pretty brutal. I think it was shortly after that they quit. They realized that was useless. But anyway, she taught me the right hand parts, and she played the left hand parts, and
Oh, how
that's
sweet.
how I started. Yeah, then I
Wow.
started taking lessons, and I just kind of kept going.
So now you're classically trained, correct?
I was classically trained, yes, but I
Okay.
also played by ear. I played in church. Growing up, I was a church organist, a church pianist, and um, all the way through until I graduated from high school. And then I went to college in classical music and studied, classical piano.
Mm-hmm.
Then when I graduated, I went into pop music. I was just kind of done with that, and kind of just went from there.
Did you, when you started playing pop music, were you in bands or anything like that, or were you just doing solos? And because you
I,
also sing.
I did well. The way that I started playing popular music is that I got a call from an agency, and they wanted to put a duo together
Mm-hmm.
with this other girl. And so I said, okay. So we got some tunes together and, did some gigs and
Right.
had some steadies. And then that kind of split up. And I did solo jobs. And then I started doing, one nighters with bands. And it just, I was telling somebody, I think yesterday, that, until the pandemic, I mean, I don't think I ever really quit, playing. I mean, it's just I kept getting calls. One call led
Yeah.
to another call that led to another call, and I
That
never thought about it. I just kind of went really from one thing to the next, and
that's what we
kind
like.
of, just kind of followed that. And
Yeah, that's actually, there's not a lot of musicians that can say that don't have some period of downtime, be it performing or whatever. Because I've had periods where I relied on being a gig musician, and sometimes the gigs just weren't there, and then it's always feast or famine.
it is. I mean, I was just very, very lucky, and I've been told that I had the right instrument, the piano, of course. So, one thing I'm grateful for my upbringing because by playing by ear, I was I learned how to become very versatile, going from
Mm-hmm.
church to classical music to, country music. And so I had the versatility to be able to, play just a solo piano or go do a piano bar, just singing and playing, or go do a one nighter with a band. And, even though it probably was terrible, I mean, we slept through the night, and made it. Everybody got paid. And
Well, being, I know you primarily as a solo artist, and
mhm,
where you can, go places and sing and play piano, and that's a huge advantage. I don't sing, and so no one's. It's very rare that I'll ever see a solo job,
mhm,
especially, you know, with how I play. I play
mhm,
solo. Nobody wants to hear me, but.
mhm.
You know, you so coming through all that, what got you? Because, and we're going to get into this for our listeners because you're pretty much a smooth jazz sensation. What led you in that direction?
Um, well, I think when I was over at Paula with her, I just started. I was writing some tunes. I'd been to Europe, and I had some tunes I'd written while I was over there.
Hmm.
And Herb says, "Well, just come record some." So I went in and recorded some with him, and they were a little jazzy. Some of them were a little more new age, but we worked on those together.
Hmm.
And I just kind of kept writing, and I never. I mean, I don't think they even called it smooth jazz then. I just kind of that was what I kind of heard in my head, and
Right.
have always kind of written that, and that's what it's called. So,
What was your breakthrough in that market?
uh, well,
Was it the
I had a
Mosquenada or?
But yeah, I had a record deal in the early 90s with a European company, but it hadn't really taken off. And, we did two albums and both kind of just parted ways. But I came back into it. I did Mashkanada, which I was always singing when I was traveling through Europe.
Uh huh.
And it was just kind of one of the songs that I always loved to sing.
Yeah,
And
it's a
so
great song.
did a little remake of that. And it right out of the gate got on Sirius XM watercolors. And, it's like, well, what are we going to follow up with?
Right.
And, kind of just kept going, and uh, kept going with the tunes um, that I was writing, and did a couple of remakes, did a couple of tunes that I had done in the early 90s. And
Okay, so you were covering yourself.
I did on one tune I covered myself. Um, and yeah, it was fun. It
Did
was
you
a
have to
fun.
get? Did you have to write and get your permission? Call your publishing company and go, "Hey,
Well, I had to make sure it was still copyrighted. I mean, it's always, you never know if those things just drop off or whatever.
yeah,
But
they're good for usually longer than most of us make it." So,
right, right. But I'm just having a blast, and I love writing. And
and
again, just kind of follow, just follow where it takes me.
you're doing a lot of jazz festivals, or at least up until last year,
Right.
um,
Yeah.
across the country and Europe, or just here in the states.
Just here in the States for right now. There was a lot of things in the works, you know, and of course I had contracts that, fell out and went away
Mhm.
during the pandemic. It was a tough time. But, several of the things that I had booked, picked back up, and I was able to do them this summer. And I just got back from Catalina uh, Jazz Festival, Catalina Island
Nice.
jazz tracks, and it was just awesome. It was like you know the dream festival.
Yeah.
Everything was just magical. and band was great. I had fabulous players, and
Who was
three
in
of
your?
the members were from the Bobby Caldwell band,
Oh, nice.
and yeah,
Who
just
who was who were they?
Roberto Valli, uh, Andrew New, and Carla Alberto.
Okay. I had a friend of mine that was Bobby's bass player for a long time, Stan
Oh yeah,
Sargent. He and then he later went out with Al Jarreau, and
yes,
I think he's with Mindy Bear this week, and he was Barry Manilow. So
yeah. I've
that's
seen
why I
his
was wondering.
name.
That's
Yeah,
why I
I've
was
seen.
wondering when you mentioned some Bobby Caldwell
Right.
players that maybe they had crossed. You guys had crossed paths.
Yeah, I've seen his name. I think he's pretty well known.
Yeah,
Um.
he lives in Italy now too.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So when you haven't gotten any of the festivals overseas yet.
No. Again, I was trying to get some of that in the works, but we'll see. Just see where it takes.
Yeah, I mean
See where it lands.
you've had this. Um, I mean you're doing your art and you're doing your thing, and it seems like you've kind of let the business just kind of find you in itself and take you to the next place. It,
Well, I mean, you kind of have to do that because if you try to force it, it just doesn't happen sometimes. So, I mean, I do a lot of work.
right.
I really do quite a bit, but still, it's gonna take the direction a lot of times the way it wants to take, and you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
it's the highs and the lows, and when it's time to quit, I'll quit. But it's
Well,
not time yet, but
no, if you're enjoying it, and um, and you also at the same time have to balance a bit of a family life as well, correct?
right, right.
And how is that for you? Because I know that can be tough in any circumstance.
Well, I've done it for so long. I started
Second nature.
early. Yeah, I started early, and um, I just have to set priorities, and some things, I just have to let go. But as a result, I never went out and partied a lot, and probably it was a good thing for me because I stayed healthy, and
Yeah.
I had a lot of friends that went out and partied a lot and ended up in bad places,
Right.
and so I personally kind of had a very you know boring suburbia life, but
I
it's
don't know if you would call anything about your life boring. Uh, jetting off to different jazz festivals, meeting all kinds of musicians. I think I saw um, a picture you had posted where you were hanging out with Gerald Albright or something, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken. You know,
yeah,
um, I don't look at that. I mean, I sit here and sometimes, I say, well, I've had a boring life, but then I look back and I go, no, I haven't.
no, you haven't.
I've been all over the
No,
world, played with all different people. Um, yeah, and there's not many of us that can actually say that.
right,
You know,
exactly.
it's like being called up to the major leagues in a baseball team, even though you may not be the star of the whole league. You're still carrying the weight with your team, and not many people get to see that. You're going to bat every day.
Well, I've been very blessed to work consistently. As a professional musician, um, truly, I'm very, very grateful for that.
Yes, and so how many I should say CDs because
Well,
nobody knows
right.
albums anymore.
Well, I have eight. The last album I did was my eighth album, so I'm working on it
Hmm.
the ninth. And I have a single out now, Fire and Water, that I just released. That's on my ninth album. Um, but it's probably going to be more like a shorter version of an album.
I cannot
Um,
even conceive of nine. In what kind of a time frame?
oh, it's been a lot of years. It's
I'm
you
still
know
on my second one, and it's 15 years apart right now. So
well, it take people don't realize how much energy it takes,
it
and
really does.
it takes a
Cre-
lot of your personal energy,
and
and
creative energy, and
a lot of you have to believe in yourself, and sometimes it's hard to do. you
we
know
we all have our little insecurities at different moments that we have to that pop up and we have to deal with,
hmm
and hopefully you kind of get them pushed in the box or something, but then another one pops up and it's like,
right,
you
right.
know,
It's never ending for sure. I
but
mean,
that's a lot of CDs.
I yeah, I'm very grateful, and to have been able to do that,
Yeah,
and and continue to do that. So,
and you've
you
worked with
know,
some great people along the way.
I've worked with some great artists in Atlanta. I've worked with some great artists, all over the country. So, it's
Yeah, we have a couple of well, probably more than a couple, but I know Joseph Patrick Moore has done some
right.
things with you.
Yeah, I've worked with Joseph a lot. He's been very instrumental and kind of helping me get my business too, because
Oh, yeah,
he is so
he's on
gifted at
top
that.
of it all.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
and he's really helped me out tremendously. I don't think my business would be what it is without him.
wow.
Um, he's really kind of helped me with my website, and, you know, internet, getting started on social media, and
He's
all that
really
stuff.
knowledgeable about all of that stuff.
Right.
And
But, I've worked with some extremely talented people. I've worked with Sam Sims and Lil John Roberts. They were on my
yeah,
last album. But before that, I worked with some Atlanta musicians,
uh,
really
the,
fabulous
you recorded over at
musicians.
Trammell's.
Yeah, Scott Meter, I mean,
Yeah,
fabulous drummer. Uh, Worked with, Sam Skelton. He's just a fabulous player, and um, just some. I've always been surrounded by really great musicians and great people.
that makes all the difference in the world.
Well, of
Because
course, I started with Herb Avery. You don't get any
yeah,
better
yeah,
than
yeah, you
that.
don't get much
I
better
mean,
than Mr. CNN himself.
oh my gosh, you don't get much better than that. So you get spoiled. It's like, well, you get in that caliber. Herb is just a genius,
And that's
and
kind of where you started, though, wasn't it, with
right, that's
her?
where I started.
So,
Yeah,
I mean, you already start here.
yeah. The
It's
bar was
all,
high. Yeah,
the
for
bar
sure.
was very high. Almost,
Right,
you could pick a half a dozen other people, and you would be below that bar. So you had quite a, you
right.
had to keep up on that because,
Well, and of course, you were working with your record company in the front office, and there was all kinds of stuff going over in the studio.
yeah,
Call us,
it was a
recording
yeah
studio, and
very creative time for a
oh,
lot of people.
it was a very creative time, and I was happy to be in that universe at that moment. Um,
And of course, I
but
inherited Herb's room after he left, so I took that little spot over and tried to keep the traditions alive.
yeah,
Yeah, so
and
because he was kind of my mentor when it came to sequencing,
right.
because
Oh, absolutely.
I was
He
just
was the
getting
first
started.
one.
He was in on that from the ground
Oh
floor.
yeah. He was the first one. My first computer, I took his
Huh.
secondhand computer, that little baby Mac that's like, wow, can't believe you actually did anything on it. But
I
it was
know.
great.
Yeah, when you look back at computers back then and now, it's just like, how did we work on a computer that only had 16 16 meg or not even meg? Yeah, 16 meg of RAM. You know.
Well, I told a friend of mine the other day, I went back to this tune that I still haven't released, and it ended up getting two versions. Resistance, you may remember that. Herb and I worked on that together,
Mm-hmm.
and we did that in that little studio, and we actually ran it off on a VCR tape,
Oh,
like
like
the
and
old
make
VCRs.
yeah,
That's what we ran masters on.
yeah, yeah. And then we upgraded to DAT.
Yeah, then we upgraded to the DATs, and um, yeah, so it was, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how good it sounded. You know.
Now, when it comes to technology in music, how comfortable are you with all that? I know you're a pianist at heart, so
Yeah,
uh,
I've been in and out of that, but I in the early '90s, I had my little studio over at the other studio with Herb and Ken Gregory,
oh yeah, yeah.
and I had my own studio. I did some PBS work. I did a PBS series over there, and I did some stuff. I did my second album over there, and at that studio. And then I just decided, I kept all my stuff, but I moved out of the studio, and um, I recorded a Christmas album in my little living room in Decatur.
Hmm.
But after that, I moved and just kind of never really got my digital stuff set up again until like 2015. And then I had to kind of just jump back into it, and
Well,
everything, of course, changed.
yeah,
And um, but it's amazing how much the just the concept of it and the kind of digital memory. I did remember a lot of things, so I just kind of picked up where I left off.
yeah. I mean, the concepts are all there. It's the software, the abilities of what it can do. Um, it can you can take it as far as you want. You can use it just to simply record an idea, or you can go full out and you know like
Right.
like Herb or myself, where we just have thousands of VSTs and all kinds of different. I call them tools. Some people call them toys. No, none of them are
Yeah.
toys. So
Well, I use mine principally for writing and arranging, and I don't call myself an engineer. I always rely on a really good mixing engineer, and I really rely on good players to kind of maybe to put some real instruments down, and
right.
I write the parts and then try to transfer it to live instruments as much as possible, and it's a tool for me, but I do a lot on the MIDI.
Yeah, no, but it makes all the difference in the world to add actual players.
Oh, it just gives it life. It
Um,
just breathes, it can take a breath.
I get into this whole thing here, and I get a lot of negative response because people think I'm anti bedroom producers. I'm not anti. I just feel that what you're doing at that point is you're creating a good demo. And until you can put it in the hands of other musicians who can interpret what you're doing, and, you know, because I feel like so much music nowadays is so solitary. I can sit in my room here and I can cut just about anything, but it's
Hmm.
just me. It's just my brain on it.
Hmm.
And whereas if I just even called you and said, "Can you come over and just add a part to this?" or
Right,
your musical sense is going to lend something that I would have never thought of,
right,
and it could take me into a whole nother direction.
right. I love working with other people.
I
I
think
mean,
I think it's imperative, and I hope we get back to that a little more. Um,
well, even online, I mean, I basically did almost my entire last album totally online, remote. And I did a couple of things, in the studio, in
you
different
mean remote
studios, but
sessions?
pardon?
You mean remote sessions with other people, or
Well, yeah, I mean, where I would send it out to a drummer. He would do his
Oh,
track,
okay.
send it back to me,
Right.
and
Okay.
then I would compile it on my, and then I'd send out that and get a like Reagan Whiteside added some flute to a tune of mine film flight, and then she'd do hers and send it back to me, and I did a lot of my album like that, but they were still you know, inputting
Yeah.
their live
Abs-
instrument, and
Absolutely. Just by even by the way they may interpret playing your part
right,
can take you to a whole different place.
right, and it was and that's why I mean I enjoy really working with other musicians.
Yeah, I find it liberating
Hmm.
because you don't, first of all, you don't have all the pressure on you.
Right,
It's like, I welcome other ideas. It's the same thing in producing. Um, you may or may not remember in your little trips to Kala, but in the control room, I used to have a sign that said the producer is not God. And, um, and I
I
wanted,
don't remember that.
huh?
I don't remember that.
Well, I may have put it up, by the time Herb had left or whatever. But I wanted all my artists to know that I don't have the final say so. Just because I'm your producer doesn't give me the right to tell you no, your idea stinks. I'll try anything, and
That's because I always gave the egg McMuffins and you were happy when I was there.
that's right. Now, see, it would have been much more effective if I was working on your album, though. But
Right, right.
but this kept you at least being able to get your phone calls forwarded to you because this was before the age of cell phones.
Oh God, yeah.
Remember,
I
all we
mean,
had was
who
pagers.
can who can even remember that? I mean,
it it's been a while. So now
yeah.
you mentioned when you were at the other studio and you had your setup that you had done a series for PBS.
Right.
What was that series? Tell us about that.
Well, it was a local series. It was a gardening show for Ryan Gainey. It was the Well Placed Weed, a book that he had written, but it was really
Well
well
placed
done.
weed.
The Well Placed Weed, and
I like it.
yeah, it was a great series, and I was very proud of the music that I did then, and I
Hmm.
really kind of got into it. And I had, of course, Herb and Ken showed me how to stripe the tape, and it was fun. I
Oh, that's
enjoyed it.
right. Yeah, I
I
remember.
I loved it. We still had to stripe the tape back then,
Yeah, I remember that
and
too.
yeah, and it was so I did some TV stuff in that period of time, and
Hmm.
of course Herb was gangbusters on CNN at that time,
Yes.
so he kind of gave me a little, if I had a question he would answer it, but he was really going on that, and
Yes.
there was a lot of stuff going on at the studio, and I loved that as well. I loved being in the studio around other musicians and just the camaraderie, and
Yeah.
it gets lonely in your little studio,
It does, and I think we've become more and more accustomed to that loneliness. But I think for the older crowd, we still like to be around other people and interact musically and in other ways, obviously as well.
Right. Well, it just feeds my soul to talk
Yeah.
about music. It's like, oh yeah. I mean, it's just there's just part of. I mean, I love talking about music, and I know
Yes.
you do too. And just there aren't many people that love to talk about it. You know.
Somebody said to me a long time ago. They went, musicians talk about music. Everybody else talks about gear. And I find they're right. I've been with players who, you know, they were good, but as soon as they had a chance, they were going to tell me all about their gear. And I don't care if it's a Fender Rhodes or a Steinway. I'm going to make some music. You know, um, it's to me, it's not about the gear,
Hmm.
but you'll find most musicians love talking about music.
Right.
And
Right.
and discussing all kinds of things about it. I mean, I love getting into theory discussions or compositional techniques or arranging for strings. I love all that stuff.
Right, right.
So when you did was um, the weed show, was that an ongoing
Well, it
or,
was no, it was a series. I
oh,
mean,
okay.
it was a series before series were popular.
Yeah.
It was a 7 part series, and you
Did
know,
you
it
did you
it
write
was
different music for each series, or were
yeah, I
you?
did.
Oh,
I
wow.
did. I wrote different music for each little episode, and got the moods of each little one, and
Well,
it was a lot of fun. I really really enjoyed that experience a lot, and uh, just writing for film is another thing that
yeah.
always wanted to do more of that, but
I've
yeah.
had the opportunity in the last 10 years now. I've done 5 feature films and several shorts, and
Hmm.
I just love it.
Oh, I do too.
I love
Love
it
it.
to death. Because you're not just writing music; you're telling the director's story,
Hmm.
and that's the part that I really like. It's like, really getting in there and trying to get the emotional content
Right,
that's there, um,
right.
and that holds true on whether it's a film or a gardening show. You still
Hmm.
have to convey what the audience is listening to, and hopefully they don't even hear the music because that's the old
Yeah,
adage. If
right.
they
They
if
don't
they can
notice it, but
if
it's
they can
there.
hear the music, then it's wrong.
Right.
You know, and so that's great that you've had the opportunity to do that. Have you tried pursuing that more or?
I would like to do more. I haven't pursued it. I would like, to do more and see where it ends up.
Now,
And
when you write, because I always find this fascinating how different people write music. Do you, excuse me, do you sit down at the piano and start just playing and kind of coming up with an idea, or are you laying in bed and going, oh, and start scribbling, or what's your?
I all of the above. I've just sat down and turned on my, well, back in the old days, just turn on the cassette recorder, but now
Right.
I just turn on my iPhone recorder
Mm-hmm.
and just kind of play randomly. And I think, oh, that was a bunch of crap. Then I might do it again the next day. It's another bunch of crap. And then I might go back and listen to 2 or 3 days of crap and come up with an idea. And, you know, then I've dreamed of songs. Been writing in the car and it's like, oh, I got to pull over and write this idea down.
Hmm.
And it's just been, or I've really tried to come up with something. It's like, okay, here's this part, and I really need to just play it over and over again and kind of see if I hear something, in the melody. And I rely on my ear mostly
Mm-hmm.
for writing. I don't. Um, I'm not an intellectual writer. I know that a lot of people can just visualize it and they're intellectual writers, but I have to hear something, and so I'm kind of more auditory that way. And but I do read and
Oh yeah.
like music and understand arranging, but I have to kind of get that first because if I
Right.
can't hear it, I can't play it.
Yes, and that holds true whether you're playing a song, writing a song, improvising. If you can't hear it, you'll never play it.
Right.
And because I've had a lot of people that write on the show, and I'm always fascinated by their process because
Hmm.
I found that the really good ones you don't really have a set process. My only one of my main processes I don't write at the piano
Hmm.
because if I always feel if I write at the piano, I'm only going to be able to write what I can possibly play. And so if I can hear it in my head, it doesn't matter whether I can play it or not. I can just write it.
Mm.
So and that works out, except for sometimes I've written stuff that I just can't play.
Yeah, well,
You know,
there.
but
Yeah,
that's why there's other musicians out there.
right, right.
Here you play it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, um, what album is currently out right now?
The last album that I released in January 2020, right before the pandemic shut everything down, was Stronger Now. And I had a lot of success with that album, even though, I had some dates set up to, promote it. Um, I Stronger Now, the title track, was on Sirius XM Watercolors. Actually, a lot of the tunes. Sun's Out was on Sirius XM as well, and Perfect Sunday, charted number 4 Billboard. They all charted on Billboard, but
Yeah,
Perfect Sunday made it the highest.
you've
And
done very well on Billboard. Essentially, the smooth jazz charts. Am I correct? Or
yeah, yeah, and again, that kind of is where my music landed
yeah,
because it wasn't intentional, but that was just what people decided it was. So, I
yeah,
never
it's
called it that. So,
yeah. I don't think most artists call their music anything other than music,
right,
and they let everybody else decide what it's going to
right,
be.
and that's where it landed. I did write one piece, a solo piece on the album called Moon on the Water, and it's just totally, and it's a little bit more classically oriented.
Hmm.
It's a total solo piano piece, and it was a little bit, more pianistic. Also had, some really little jazzy tune. Perfect Sunday was, got so many people that love that tune. It's almost gotten 5 million plays on Spotify.
Wow.
That's not bad for a little jazz tune.
Yeah,
And
that's not bad for a non-jazz tune.
um, and so the album, uh, did really well, all things considered. The pandemic lockdown and not being able to promote it and
Have you
playing
thought
it.
of doing like a more of a classical type record where like maybe you even take some of the songs that you've had a great deal of success with and put them maybe in like a string quartet situation or something like that.
I might do that. I'm kind of working on this album right now. That's kind of more of the
Right.
same of what I've been doing.
And
But
who's producing for you? Tell people who's.
well, I co-produce with several people. My new single I co-produced with Roberto Valli.
Hmm.
He's played with Spyro Gyro. He's a writer in his own right. He's played with Christopher Cross,
Yeah.
just Dinah Shore. I mean, just the list goes on and on.
Wow, that's
Franks, you
going
know,
from Christopher Cross to Dinah Shore. That's
it just
yeah,
you got to be flexible.
yeah.
But anyway, we co-produced it together, so that's been released and it's been out for a couple of weeks, and so far it's doing really well. But I have other tunes that I'm working with Paul Brown.
Hmm.
He's producing. He lives in California. Both of them live in California, but we did a lot with remotely. Just sending things back and forth. You know, uh, via
Right.
the
Now,
internet.
don't you usually go out there every year for the Grammys?
I have. I didn't go last year, obviously, because they didn't. You know,
Yeah, it
well,
was kind of a scaled down Grammys, so to speak.
I've been trying to decide if I want to go out this year. A lot of things have changed up, and I don't know. But I went out there for the Catalina Jazz Tracks Festival, and I
Hmm.
recorded. recorded some out there when I went, and I'd probably do another trip. I just don't know if it's going to be with the Grammys or not.
Right.
Another recording trip, and uh, I like working with Paul. He's worked with a lot of really, great
Yeah.
musicians.
Hmm.
He just has a instinct of a nose of what to do, and um, really, really did a good job. I thought on my last album, and uh, but back to the classical thing, I've written things that are on my computer now that are very kind of string quartet or very symphonic.
Hmm.
And so I might put a symphonic type, modern symphonic album out,
I think that would be interesting.
in a few years, just because.
Yeah. I mean, you especially when you're having success in one genre, um, you can actually afford to step out a little bit and try some other things if the mood so strikes you.
Right. And
Yeah.
I might try to even see if I could actually get some real players, symphonic players. I'd love to redo Resistance, which was never released,
Right.
with a real symphony. That would be my bucket list dream come true. Um, you know, to hear it with a real symphony.
If you haven't worked with symphony players before, I can tell you they're a difficult lot, especially the string players.
Yeah.
Other than
Well,
the horn section, the brass section, aces. They are the greatest people in the world to work with. But those string players can be tough.
well, um,
But that's
anyway,
yeah, that's another.
it's a bucket list.
Yeah.
I'll let the conductor try to whip them in shape and just try to sit back and listen, you
Yeah.
know, just play the part. Um, but I just music feeds my soul again, and I'm just gonna keep going till I can't go anymore. You
Yeah.
know.
I think that's kind of the mantra of any true musician because you really can't, you know, not to say you can't do anything else, but emotionally you can. It's where we live,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's the typical. You don't choose music; music chooses you.
I guess.
And once you've been chosen, you're not going to turn around and be a fry cook or something.
Well, you and I both know. I mean, there have been times probably we tried to leave. I mean, there's been a couple of times I tried to quit and leave music, and invariably, as soon as I make a decision to do that, there's a phone call. Oh, can you do this? There's an opportunity to go here or go there, and it just calls you back in. You can't leave it.
Well, at one point, I was doing I was doing the Cafe 290s and stuff like that, and I was getting real burnt out on doing those kind of gigs. And I was on the phone to the bass player, and I was like, I don't know about this, man. I'm just getting real sick of, every month wondering, am I going to be able to pay rent or, is
Mm-hmm.
the gig going to happen? And as I said that, I was like, hang on, somebody else is calling. It's Curtis Mayfield going, get your passports. We're going on the road. And never looked back after that.
Right, exactly. I remember
Sometimes
when you were doing that. Yeah.
yeah, I did that right up until 90
Mm-hmm.
when he had his accident.
Right.
And
Which
then
which which he was. You were supposed to be in that place,
I
and
was
you were
supposed to be
somewhere
on
else.
that stage, and
Right.
he got the gig at the very last minute, and I couldn't be there because I had a session at the studio. And he told me, when I finally got to see him, he's like, "Thank goodness you weren't there because it was a lighting tree that fell. It basically cut the piano in half,
Oh my
and
gosh.
it came from behind. I would have never seen it." So it was one of those, kind of woo, freaky,
Yeah,
you
you were
know.
being looked out
Yeah,
for sure.
and
Yeah.
but I went out with a bunch of artists after that because I got to the point where I really looked forward to those little trips, even if they were just a couple of weeks.
Right.
And up until 2020, last year and this year, I haven't done my 2 or 3 Japan trips that I do every year. So
Yeah.
it's been kind of interesting. I thought I heard somebody walk in the door.
Oh.
Yeah, I was like, who is that? But oh, where'd you go? There you are.
Yes. Yes. It said low
But
power mode.
yeah, so I've never been big on performing. It's not like I have to perform or whatever. I'm more comfortable in a studio situation, but I still miss just that little. I'm going to get out of here for 2 weeks and just be in front of people for a little bit.
Hmm.
I do. I can take it in some very small doses,
Right.
you know, but
Well, yeah.
you get out there and you're out there a while.
Yeah, I not as much as I used to be, but I still, it's the kind of thing if you don't get out, like after the pandemic, I mean, the first job I went out and did, I mean, I was pretty nervous because you get
Yeah,
out of that, you get out of the mode.
absolutely.
What? So, Buzz, where are we on time? I can't see what time it is.
Um, it's 8:30.
Okay, well, I'm good.
Yeah, only got a little bit more to go, so
Okay.
you'll be released on your own recognizance. So
No, I, for good behavior. Okay.
yeah,
Uh,
but yeah, I know performance is a big thing for you because you've done it
I,
essentially all your professional life.
it's a love hate thing. I
Yeah,
mean, it totally is. It's a love hate. I mean, I just seek it. I go after it. I, you know, make calls and then I get it. It's like, oh, now I got to do it. It's,
yeah. Well, I'm okay as long as I don't have to schlep gear.
well, yeah, yeah,
Those days are long gone. That
they are over for me. If I can't lift it myself, it's just, I'm not buying it.
Yeah, I
It's
I
not going to
won't.
go out my door,
I even got to the point where I got so spoiled that I wouldn't take a gig in town unless there was a piano there.
Well, and that too. I mean, just hauling equipment just really changes the entire complexion
Yeah,
of
I'm
the
fine with
entire.
it
It
in my
adds hours.
20s and 30s. That's great.
Yeah.
But there comes a point after that. It's like I don't want to do it, and uh,
Right.
so you're in that same setup that I used to be, where you just walk out there, everything is where you need it, and if it isn't, you just excuse me, could you
Well, yeah.
attach
It's
this? Without being, I'm not talking about just being
right.
bossy or anything, but
Right. Right.
everything is taken care of for you,
Right.
so that you can concentrate on what you do.
Right. But I still have haul equipment around. From time to time. I mean, doing things. So I still take my keyboard out, but it's a lot lighter than it
Yeah,
used to be.
thank goodness they started
Yeah.
making lighter keyboards.
Right. And yeah, I had back in the day, I had a Yamaha electric grand, and that was
Oh
such a brain
Lord.
burp. I know it was such a brain burp. I I I just the it was one of the best days of my life that I sold that thing.
Yeah, I
Yep.
bet. And probably
But
whoever used to lug it around for you, one of their best days.
I would just beg and plead, to get somebody to help me do that, and then eventually I just ended up not taking a job.
Yeah,
Until I got a lighter keyboard. I just wouldn't take a job that needed a keyboard. It's like it wasn't worth it.
yeah. I
I even
want.
bought a car to fit that keyboard in. It's like,
I used to carry, like when I used to do 290 and stuff, I would carry 5 and 6 keyboards, including a Rhodes, and my own PA just for me.
You're right.
Not nobody else could even sing. You know, the singer couldn't. You know, this is just for me. So I don't drive, so I had to definitely find a roadie, um,
Hmm.
and find someone who was a fan enough to go. Yeah, I'll help you.
Hmm.
Great. So, um, but yeah, it was the day I got my first digital piano was the first day I did a gig without a Rhodes, and that felt weird because
Yeah.
I love my
Your old friend
Rhodes.
kind of felt like your old friend.
Yeah, he still
Yeah.
sits over at Rick Hinkle's studio.
Yeah. Well, I mean, some people pay top dollar for good roads these days, you know?
Yeah, I'm not
It's
looking at
vintage.
selling it. It's very vintage. It was given to me by Hugo Fatoruso, who he was like Flora Purim's piano player. Um, very very well known. He's from Argentina, but very well known in Brazilian music, and Toninho Horta and people like that. And he gave me that Rhodes for befriending him when he was spent a few months here in Atlanta. Um, I mean, I was touched when he did that, and I've hung on to it ever since.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, so because that was like late '80s, mid '80s when he
Wow.
gave me that. So so what's next for you?
Well, I'm finishing my album. I It hasn't been announced yet, but I am been invited to go to Berks Jazz Festival in the spring, and
So do we
so
this we haven't I have an exclusive?
you do.
Oh,
It hasn't been announced yet,
yeah, you
but
heard it here
yes,
first, folks.
I doubt that anyone that knows about Berks is listening to it right now. So it'll be announced after Thanksgiving. But yeah, I have a date for Berks Jazz Festival, and that's and I was invited.
Hmm.
And so
Prestigious.
sometimes you just try so hard to make things happen, and it doesn't happen. And then sometimes you just out of the blue. I
Something
mean,
comes up.
and it was the
The-
same. I played the Smith Center in Las Vegas a few years ago, a couple of years ago, and I was just invited. I was invited by um, used to be the director of the uh, it, uh, Baldwin artist division,
mhm.
and moved to Las Vegas after Baldwin disbanded and liquidated a lot of their artist program and a lot of things. And he, started the Smith Center, and
Hmm.
we, just on Facebook, he kind of reconnected. Said, "Oh, hey, you're, on Billboard," and so he invited, with the directors of the Smith Center, of
Right.
course. Invited me to do a concert at the Smith Center, and that was just fabulous. That was a dream. That was like a bucket list dream come true. I
Hmm.
mean, it was just a fabulous venue, fabulous uh, hall, to
Do
play
you
in.
find that your bucket's getting full, or does it keep getting larger, and you want to fill it with
I
more
have
and more?
so many bucket list things. I don't know if it'll ever be full. But I've been very rewarded in having some of the things,
Yeah.
filled. And that was one, playing in a concert hall, and it's kind of it's the Carnegie Hall of the West, the Smith Center. It's just state of the art. Everything was perfection,
I can
and
imagine.
it was just, it was just a fabulous experience. And so, and then I've tried to get things, tried calling
Excuse me.
people, tried sending them EPKs, try, and just it's futile. And it's like,
Yeah.
well, oh well.
Yep. And then the universe turns around and rewards you some other way.
And something that comes out of the blue,
Yeah.
and which is a great thing. So it's kind
Yeah.
of been my career.
So what advice what advice do you have for anyone who's trying to um, get into kind of, achieve what you've been achieving in the last dozen years or so?
Um, my advice is to be very flexible, to always be kind, because if you're not kind to someone, it will come back and bite you in the ass at some point. Be nice with the people you're working with and who you're around, and respectful, and work hard. And it's just those things will get you a lot further than um, having an attitude and thinking you're above everyone else.
Right.
It's just you got to learn how to work with people. It's just critical to work in, you know, bands or wherever you may end up working. You're going to have to work with someone, and to be, flexible.
And show up on time.
Show up on time, be punctual, do what you say you're going to do, and
Bring an egg McMuffin to to keep people happy.
yeah, I don't know what started that, but it was just a fun thing. It's
Yeah.
kind of like
Well, you
it,
you may or may not remember the other fun thing, and I think I still have it somewhere.
that
Um,
picture.
your promo picture, and every time we would have a female artist at the studio, I would always ask them to sign it. Thanks for last night. And oh, there you go. Did I lose
What?
you?
No, I'm still
Oh,
here.
okay. I
It's
thought you were
getting
like,
low. It
yeah.
may cut out.
That's all right. We're wrapping up. Anyway, I
Yeah.
appreciate you
So
taking.
yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate you taking the time for that, and I appreciate you taking the
Oh
time for
gosh.
writing the thanks for last night.
Uh,
People
yeah.
still
I don't
ask
remember
about
which
that.
picture that was. Yeah.
It was
There's.
one of your first. Well, I
Yeah.
don't. Um,
Right.
I'll find it and scan it and send it to you.
Yeah. No, I remember that because it was always kind of a joke, and so yeah, it's fun times.
Yeah, yeah. Those were they were great days, and hopefully we have many more great days ahead of us.
Well, I think it's always fun, again, working around other musicians and um, exchanging ideas. I've always had fun doing
Yeah,
that. And, you know, um, so, but you have to be very resilient, you
yeah.
know, you have to be very resilient, very flexible.
It's not an easy business.
No, it's not.
And make no mistake about it, it is a business.
Well, you have to treat it like a business. Again, you have to do what you say you're going to do. And, we're all guilty sometimes of overextending ourselves. And, you know, it's, you have to follow through.
Yeah. So, well, that's good advice for anybody to follow, whether you're a
Yeah.
musician or not.
Right.
But well, we're gonna look to see your next record on Billboard,
I hope so.
and I'll play the title cut
Okay.
for your interview
Okay.
and give people a little taste of it.
Okay.
And I think that's about it. I thank you very much.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Buzz. Well,
Yeah,
we must catch up sooner than I don't know,
every
however
30
often. But,
years.
well, yeah, actually, we've talked, but we just
We've
haven't, like,
talked, yes.
yeah.
You helped me out a little bit with my website, or at least some
Yeah, our
ideas about my
students, and
website.
we've
When,
talked about music students, and
yeah,
you
yeah,
know,
exactly.
but all right, well, Buzz, you know, thank you for having me on.
Yeah, thank you for
Great
doing it.
time.
Yeah, and I see the universe is waiting for you behind you. You got all the stars have come out.
Okay,
All
awesome.
right. Well,
All right,
we'll
okay,
talk again soon.
okay, all
All
right.
right. Bye bye.